All right, we are back here talking pop culture on the podcast, making his long-awaited return to the podcast after his second place finish in the baseball movie draft. Our resident movie critic, John Stanko, is here. John, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Mike. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I will say it was close there with you and Al in the baseball movie draft. You just snuck it out at the end of that poll.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he had more of the traditional movies, and I think my Red Sox still we believe video was very personable, but not everyone had heard of it. So if I had to give a reason for the loss, I would give it to that pick.
Yeah, I think Allen had the more well-rounded team, and I think that's sort of why he won. But I will say it is interesting talking movies right now because, again, we're still in a holding pattern here, and we're kind of waiting to see what's going on with the movie world.
Yeah, the movie world's still in flux. So frankly, there was a ton of new trailers dropped in recent days. So I don't know when they agreed to start putting out trailers again, but multiple high-profile movie trailers were released in about 48 hours of us taping. But yeah, I mean, there are movies coming out in theaters in a month. Where theaters are open is kind of what the tagline is. So guess what? If your state is open, you can go see Tenet in theaters in a month or so. So it's bonkers, though. And I'm very curious to see how comfortable people will be to go to the theater once they are opening up.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're a New Yorker like me right now, like, not happening for you. You're actually going through, you have to go over to Connecticut if you want to go see a movie in a theater because New Jersey doesn't have it either. But I will say, keep my eyes peeled. I am looking forward to trying the Tenet drive-in experience. I want to find a drive-in theater that has Tenet. That sounds like it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but I genuinely think if you do that, you might have to get in line 3 hours before the movie to get a seat in the drive-in.
Hey, what am I doing otherwise? I mean, I could put the Mech game on the radio and just wait for it.
That's a fair point. That's a very fair point. But yeah, I don't know any drive-ins by me, so unfortunately, I don't think that's an option for me. But if you got them by you, definitely take advantage of it. I've never been to a drive-in movie. Never been.
Yeah, I haven't been in a long time. See, something I'm planning on doing for this because I might also try and go like an off day to try and go catch it because some of these play all the time. Like I think like they expanded their hours in the COVID pandemic, so they might have more showings try and make up revenue here.
Yeah, it's like, are they worried about revenue or are movies serving more of a normality standpoint at this? I'm sure the companies themselves are worried about, like AMC and Regal and all those are worried about the money aspect. But you wonder if the local theater like Verizon is not worried about the profits, but more worried about like the communal gathering of like, hey, let's do something fun together and be safe.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Tenet, like right now, they are the one movie so far that's really said we are sticking with our theater plan. We are opening wherever we can. They're opening internationally first, and then scattershot in the U.S. Like, how do you think that's going to work for them?
I think that U.S. fans are going to be furious that they don't get the first glimpse of the movie with the opening overseas in places too. I think that it's going to be a lot like a James Bond movie, which is traditionally released over in Europe first or over in the States. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a culture thing for Americans not to see it first. But, I mean, people are going to have to avoid spoilers. And, again, I think that if Warner Brothers had their own way, I think they would have released it on streaming. But I think that Christopher Nolan has enough pool where they would never, ever, ever allow that to happen. Because if you think about it, if this got released on streaming, they would dominate the streaming conversation for at least a week. It would just be nonstop PR, nonstop for Tenet. But I think Christopher Nolan is so much of an originalist, which I respect, but he's like, there's no way I'm not having it released in theaters.
Yeah, that's definitely Nolan there. Nolan was, remember we talked about this the last time, how he was trying to save the theaters and be the first one back in. Now he's not going according to plan for him. But some of the other big blockbusters we've seen like are doing like the split model. I think like Bill and Ted, the third one is basically splitting between theaters and streaming, and Mulan actually going from Disney, skipping the theaters, going right to Disney Plus or streaming $29.99 for the premiere access. And unlike the Trolls World Tour, where we have to buy it every time, it's $30, and then you can get it on Disney Plus as much as you want before it gets added to the service. So what do you think about that idea?
I think the fact that it's not only for 48 hours is huge, massive, because $30 to rent a movie you only have for 48 hours is just too much money. So with that being said, I don't know if I'm going to spend $30 to see Mulan. And the reason I say that is, one, if I did that for every new movie that came out, I'd have no money left. And two, Mulan, I think, the reason that Disney's doing this is because there's so much money invested into it budget-wise that they need to charge a high amount because it's meant to be seen in theaters. So I don't think $30 to see a movie that was meant to be seen in theaters on your TV is, I think, going to really be a detriment to the value of the movie. I think so. I'm conflicted as to whether or not I'm going to buy it for $30. I think if I were watching with someone and we split it, I'd be more than happy to do it. But I'm not as excited for Mulan as others, so I think I'm willing to wait a little bit unless the reviews are just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting test case for them because they said kind of, oh, it's a one-off. We're going to do this because of the unique situation. But I think if they get a ton of money from this, it would not shock me if Black Widow is going that way too if we have the same sort of virus issues at this point in November.
They could charge $50 for Black Widow and people would buy it.
Oh, yeah, because it's a Marvel movie.
People would buy it. Yeah, because it's Marvel, because it's the name.
Yeah, and there's been a long layoff between Marvel movies now thanks to the pandemic. I mean, the last one to come out was Spider-Man Far From Home, and I think in July of last year. So we're going almost like 15 months between Marvel movies.
Yeah, did you see actually news today? Olivia Wilde has signed a contract to do a secret Marvel movie in the coming years to direct it. To direct the movie, star in it.
I did see that. The rumor is that it's in the Sony universe. It's supposed to be like a Spider-Woman movie. That's the rumor I've heard about that.
Yeah, that's the rumor, but that's exciting. I like Olivia Wilde as a director. I love Booksmart. Like, Booksmart was incredible. So if she brings that type of humor and the skills she had with Booksmart to the table, I'm very excited. I like that move by Marvel and Disney for hiring her to direct that movie because she's a name, but she's also relatively unproven as a director, so still a chance for her to experiment. So I like it.
Yeah, as I remember you say previously, you're pretty much out on Marvel right now until the Mahershala Ali Blade shows up. Then you're back in.
Basically. I'm going to watch the movies, Mike. I'm going to watch them, but they're not top number one on my list of things that I must see.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. And speaking of movies that you must see, I will say today's topic here, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I have gotten some viewer requests saying, especially after the baseball movie draft, how does John Stanko grade his movies? What's the rationale between what separates the B+ from the D, from the F, from the A? So I think today we'll have a fun exercise. We'll dive into that.
Yeah, I mean, I got to try and explain my reasoning and rationale in a logical way. So that's going to be my job. You got to get that out of me. Because sometimes I don't know. Sometimes it's just gut. I don't know.
All right, so in case you are not familiar, you do have a Google Doc online listing the movies that you've seen, basically I think in chronological order by release date. And it has your grades, the critics' grades, a little bit of genre stuff. Fascinating study to get insight into the mind of John Stanko. Look at that graph.
Yeah, people have seen the list and they have texted me or let me know very vehemently the disagreements they believe in terms of my grading and stuff like that. So I put it out there for people to see. It's also for my own records because I love keeping track of this Excel stuff and seeing what I've seen. So, and also I think the biggest thing for me with this list is I see how I've grown and changed as a viewer, as a movie viewer. Like I'm currently in the process of uploading all of my grades to Letterboxd, the social media movie site online. And I'm like 1,700 movies in out of my almost 2,200 on my list. And it's very interesting because I remember when I see certain movies and I graded that super low the first time I saw it, but now looking back, it should have been higher. But it's about when you see the movie, like where you are as a person, what's going on in the culture. Like there's a lot of variables that go into grading a movie that aren't necessarily just what's on the screen in front of you. So I think I've grown an appreciation for that as I began reviewing my list with it transferring to Letterboxd.
Yeah, it makes some sense. And just for the audience, I'll put the link to that Google Doc in the post for this podcast. But as of recording, how many movies have you seen all time?
I think I am, if I scroll down the list, I'm thinking about 2,170 on the list. And I think I have a couple that I need to add that I haven't added on yet. So around the 2,170 mark. That's
a very impressive accomplishment.
I mean, you don't tell my mom that. She completely disagrees. I just love calculating watching movies and she'll just roll her eyes at me like a crazy person. But listen, it's what I do to unwind. It's what I do when I need to take a break. I will say that over the past month, I don't know if it's because the lack of new movies coming out or whatever, but I've been going more to the TV shows, so I got to get back into the movies a little bit. I was slacking for the past month or so with new TV shows I discovered. So, but it continuously grows.
Hey, I gotta say, also the sport coming back was also probably a thing for you too, because you had your Celtics in the playoffs, the Bruins in the playoffs. We don't talk about the Red Sox today, but you do have those two.
No, we don't talk about the Red Sox. But yeah, actually, you're right with that with the sports. Like I've become a fairly big NBA fan, so I've been watching every single NBA game since they came back, every game that I can. So, and yeah, the Bruins in the playoffs. So there's things happening now for sure, but I still gotta find time, and I will find time.
Yeah, and I will say one quick thing on the NBA. I'm a big fan of the bubble. The bubble games have been a lot of fun.
The bubble games have been unbelievable. I've been so impressed with how well the players have played, and I think the playoffs. I love how personal it is. It seems like with these players now just going at it. So it's been a really, really good product. Major props to the NBA for making it work. And again, the day we're recording here, they sent out another press release. No COVID positive test at all for anyone in the bubble.
Yep, keep knocking on that wood that they can keep it going, especially once they bring in the families after the first round of the playoffs. That's going to be the next big test for them.
That will be the next big test for sure. So, but I mean, listen, right now the NBA is winning. Is winning the revitalization bubble, if you will, in terms of things getting back to normal. But I think also some credit to the NHL. I think they're the fourth of the major sports, but you haven't heard many hiccups in that department either.
And let's get back to the movies actually for a minute here. I think we should go from the bottom to the top to save the suspense on what makes the A+ movie for the last. So we'll start with the F range. What does it take to get the failing grade from John Stanko?
If you're in the F category, for sure, there's a guarantee that I'd paused the movie and walked away and done something else. If it's an F, it's like I'm willing to turn you off and then go back to you at a later time. You do not capture my attention enough. That is a pure quality of an F grade movie. And then I guess the other thing for F made is usually things that are super duper cliched, like they follow all the same story points as one would expect. Like they literally touch on every single stone that's to cross over the river of the movie. Like they don't ever try and take a jump or a leap and make something exciting happen. Those are probably the two biggest traits of an F movie.
Has there ever been an F movie where you actually just turned it off and never finished it because you were just so frustrated?
Napoleon Dynamite, still to this day, one of the worst movies and just unsatisfactory movies I've ever seen in my life. And I watched it in high school. And I'm like, oh, everyone's quoting it. It's going to be so funny. And I think I learned in that moment in time, I don't like cringe humor. I don't like awkward humor. It is not for me. And that movie is chock full of it. The only thing it is awkward and strange, and just I hate that type of humor. So, yeah, that's the first movie, and that's really the only one that I just have shut off and just been like, no, thank you.
That's funny, because as I listed some examples on my notes here of movies that fit the ranges here, and Napoleon Dynamite with F- is one of the ones I listed in the F range.
Yeah, I really, really, really did not like Napoleon Dynamite. It really was not good. I mean, the thing about me, Mike, is I will watch that movie. I am fine with it. Like, I will watch anything that you put in front of me, like anything at all. And so, like, I understand going into it, it might not be very good, but like there's the difference between a D and an F is like a D actually maybe they tried taking some risks. Maybe they tried doing something different. It obviously didn't work if I gave the movie in the D range, but at least they attempted something to get my interest. Sometimes though, there's nothing to work with, and it's just in the bottom tier.
Yeah, other ones I had listed as examples in the F range. The 2003 Hulk movie, you gave it an F+. Is that the worst rating, or is that the F- the worst rating?
F- is the worst. Come on, it's like A+, A-. So like it's like the same thing. Yeah, my grading system's whacked because I give plus minuses on every single letter.
Yeah, you have Hulk as an F+, Napoleon Dynamite as an F-, two Fs I wrote down, The Happening, and one I agree with you with, The Last Airbender is an F. That, I think, is still my worst movie I've ever seen.
Well, actually, you'll be proud of me. I started watching the animated show.
Oh, really?
So I'm on like episode 12 of the first season. So I have started watching it. But yeah, so I mean, those are all bad movies. They're not very good. I remember I really wanted to like that 2003 Hulk movie because comics, whatever like that, and I remember they went so comic booky with the transitions, like the boxes literally transitioning between scenes. I wasn't a huge fan.
Yeah, I will say, after you watch the animated show, you realize how badly M. Night Shyamalan screwed up that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I understand like with the show, the Nickelodeon show that's currently on Netflix, and I I've heard the first season is the most childish, quote unquote, in
Yes,
terms of like the
that's
current stuff. Like, really, I'm really trying to power through this first season. Again, it's not bad, but like I'm not binging it. I'm just watching one, and then I'm like, all right, I'm good for today. Like,
yeah.
it's one of those things.
Yeah, the middle of season one, they have some issues trying to like sort of like balance the humor with the serious storytelling. Like the end of season one, they really have a nice little kick there. Like once you get like to like episode like 14 to the end, it really powers up, and like the storytelling goes another gear for like seasons 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard only good things, and someone got me into it finally to start watching it, and we started watching it. And again, it's good. It's good. I've heard the series finale is one of the best ever. Is what I've been told for any TV show of any genre. So I'm excited to get there. I'll get there eventually. I'll let you know when I do.
That does sound good. We'll talk about maybe down the line. I know Martina Puccio is also watching it, the last Avatar on Netflix, so maybe one day we'll discuss it.
No, well, then there you go.
All right. Next up, we'll go to the D range. What makes this? You said this the thing difference in the D's and the F's. They at least took some swings, but they didn't really execute them.
Yeah, that's really the biggest difference. Again, it's a movie that it's a movie. Yeah, that's the biggest thing is that when you at least like basically they're in the batter's box, right? The movie's a batter. If you're getting F, you looked at 3 pitches, didn't swing the bat once. I mean, with the D's, maybe you struck out on 3 pitches, but maybe you fouled one off, and then you swung at the other 2, so you didn't go down, like just go down looking without even trying. So that's kind of like the D analogy that I would think.
All right. And so examples of the D movies I pulled from the spreadsheet. I have a D minus for Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah, that movie almost got in the F range. It really, really did. But because I like dinosaurs, it got in the D range.
Okay, that's fair. I have also in the D's. I have Scoob. I remember you mentioned you actually covered this on Stanko Stands recently. You said that movie was horrible.
Yeah, it was not. It was super disappointing. And actually, I'll give the movie this. I really thought it was like in like the C minus range until like the ending, and then the ending just stunk. And I was like, all right, you're in the D.
Okay, that one's a D. Also D plus, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote.
Man, oh yes, I really, really, really want to like that movie. Came out an original on Amazon Prime, and I really wanted to like it, and it just wasn't that good. And I'm super disappointed about it.
Yes, I know. I think that whole movie is cursed. I mean, you've heard the story of the Man of La Mancha and how they were trying to make that for years. And every time I feel like somebody tries to adapt that story, something goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like the one that came out in 2018 had Adam Driver in it, which obviously I think is a phenomenal actor. Like, I really think that there was a shot for it to be really good, and it just didn't. It didn't tickle my fun buttons, if you will.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. And the last one in the D range I brought up here, the immortal Rocky V.
Rocky V again. It was I saw that back when I was like in the freshman year of high school. I'd binge watch all the Rocky movies, and it's still the worst one. Frankly, if I were to go back and grade it now, it might be in the F range. But when I first saw it, which is a rule with my list, it's the first time I saw the movie. Not the second, it's not the third. I don't go retroactively fixing these grades. It's the first time I saw it. So obviously, when I first saw Rocky V, I guess I thought the music was still cool or something, and it didn't fall down to the F range.
Yes, I remember watching that movie. Like that movie was so bad. You could tell really they were just there for the paychecks. And at that point, I mean, Stallone himself, he realized like, hey, this is terrible. I have to fix the ending of the series. Now I got Rocky Balboa about like 15 years later.
And this is Rocky Balboa I actually really like. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. But yeah, Rocky V, not very good. In the D range.
In the D range. And let's go to the C range next. So C range, I'm assuming some basically like average movie, like enjoyed it, fine, nothing special.
This is where most of my movies end up landing, is the C plus range. This is where it's the hardest for me, Mike, because it's the biggest difference between being entertaining movie and being a good movie. It's like, how do I, like, maybe the movie wasn't, like, particularly well made, but I was entertained. Maybe the movie was very entertaining, but it was super sloppy and the story made absolutely no sense. Like, this is where those are the movies that really go into the C range, and like I can tell you that from uploading my list to Letterboxd, like this is where the majority of my ratings are in the C plus B minus range with a 2.5 or 3-star rating. Those are typically where my ratings end up coming.
Yeah, I pulled some examples on the C range as well. Uncle Drew, a C from you.
Yeah, I actually, with that movie, shout out to, was it Reggie Miller, who was actually really funny in that movie and like in the movie itself. But then you turn on the color commentary of any basketball game, you're like, oh no, please mute forever. So, yeah, but no, yeah, it was an all right movie. I mean, to be fair, I watched that the year Kyrie was with the Celtics, so I don't know when in the season I watched it, because I can tell you if it was near the end of the season, it probably would have gotten a lower grade.
It's probably middle of the year, somewhere around there, I guess.
Probably when I thought there was still hope.
Yeah. Well, Kyrie's on the Nets now. We'll see if he curses them next year. Spider-Man 3 in that range, also a C minus. I could see that argument because they did a very bad job wrapping up the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, and there was supposed to be a 4. I basically got canned because this movie was so bad.
Yeah, I remember I really hated the Tobey Maguire jazz singing dance sequence. I hated that, and I really remember this was the first time where they overstuffed the movie with bad guys, because they had the Sandman and they had Venom. They could have done with just one or the other. The same thing that really hurt the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they just overloaded it with villains and stuff like that. So that's why I really didn't like Spider-Man 3.
I hope that for the third Spider-Man, Tom Hollandish, I hope they don't make that same mistake and overstuff the movie with villains again.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think that's something where they want to try and appease the fans as much by putting in as many characters as possible. But you can overboil the movie, if you will. You can have it overflow, and that just creates a mess.
Yeah, and the last one the C rating I wrote down was that I had Saw at C plus. So it stuck out to me.
Saw at C plus. Actually, that one probably should be higher. If I were to go back and retroactively grade Saw, I'd probably give it like a B or B plus because of how much it changed the genre, if you will. I remember when I don't like the gory horror, so that was probably a detriment to it. And just in terms of my preferences, which I have, like there are just some movies that are tougher for me to enjoy because I just can't get into them as much. But I'm surprised it's as low as a C plus. That's the honest answer with you.
Yeah, I saw that. That's why I was curious. I brought it up because I wrote down ones that sort of popped that I caught my eye when I did this. So that's the C range. We'll go to the B's now. So what makes the B range movie? I know Alan Austin was skeptical of the B plus range about the baseball draft.
All right, so yeah, the thing is, a B plus is a very, very good grade. Like, think of it, if you're rating it on a scale of 0 to 100, that's between, an 87 and a 90? Like,
yeah,
that's still a very good grade. So, the B pluses are very good, because B plus the B plus is a perfect grade for me because it's when I really enjoyed the movie, but I just don't think it's that good, but, like, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'd recommend it to everybody, it gets a B plus. Like, that's kind of where that falls. The movie that falls just short of the A range.
Yeah, one of your B pluses I saw right off the bat, Terminator 2 got a B plus.
Yeah, again, I remember that's probably the first time I saw it. I didn't understand truly what I was seeing. And I'm guarantee you I didn't get a bunch of the humor and, like, the subtletyness of it when I first saw it. So that's the thing with this grade system. It's when I first saw the movie where if I could go back and add another column to this Excel sheet, Mike, to this movie list, it would be adding the first time I saw the movie, like putting the date watched, if you will. But I can't go back in time because I don't know when I saw these movies, so it just wouldn't be worth it for me. But I think that when I first saw Terminator, I was probably not into that type of action. I was probably into a different type. But again, B plus is still a very, very good movie.
Yeah, some other ones on the list. Indiana Jones Temple of Doom barely gets in the column here of B minus.
Well, that's the worst. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is worse. It's the worst of the original trilogy. I really remember thinking the kid was annoying and the woman was beyond annoying. I don't remember the woman. But yeah, I mean, but the thing is, it's also Indiana Jones, right? The B minus is like, that's like, hey, Harrison Ford can still carry a movie, be charismatic. And I remember the scene on the bridge is still really, really cool. So that's why that's B minus.
Yeah, that's fair. Another one, like a classic movie, award winner, got a B from you, Schindler's List.
I remember thinking Schindler's List was way too long.
That's also a fair criticism.
It's like it's over 3 hours, isn't it? Like it's a long movie.
Yeah, very long.
Yeah, and I also think when I first saw it was in high school, and I think I could probably say my attention to a really sad, depressing heroine character study. I probably was not as into that when I was a sophomore, junior in high school when I first saw this movie.
Yeah, that's definitely a while ago, and I do think the length of the movie sometimes can hurt it. I do think, I'm curious what your take on JFK, because that's another one where the movies were very, very long.
I don't think I've seen JFK. That's really? Oliver Stone.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I have not seen JFK.
That's one to add to your list. I'm curious about your take. That is considered a very good movie.
It is considered, but the thing is, isn't it a super conspiracy theory?
It is very conspiracy theory.
I don't love the conspiracy theories. I would have to get by that. But I know the cast is absolutely ridiculous in the movie I've heard, and it's over 3 hours though. But yeah, I mean, I should check out JFK. You're right.
Yeah, I've watched the entire movie. I did enjoy it a lot. It did get long, like at the 2.5 hour mark. I was feeling it, but I did enjoy what I was watching.
I mean, yeah, it's got a cast. Like it's got Jack Lemmon, Gary Oldman, Kevin Costner. I mean, that's just a great threesome to start with. So I should watch it. I just need to find out where it's streaming, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll find it out for you. I'll get it to you off the air, but. One thing I have a curiosity about with the B+ grades.
Yeah.
According to your chart, and I know this is based on when you originally saw the movies, you have Forrest Gump with the same B+ grade as Rocky 4.
Yeah, I would probably say that. And again, I don't think Forrest Gump is a bad movie. I think it is an overrated movie. And I think it's one of those things where I thought Forrest Gump was better in terms of a well-made movie. Like I appreciated the acting in it more so than it being entertaining.
Yeah.
Where I think I differ with people. I think people watch the thing and it's a piece of Americana and super entertaining. And I never get that from an entertainment standpoint at all.
Yeah, so like I think B+ where I personally had. I was just surprised that Rocky 4 was that high. That was my personal question about it.
You're surprised that Rocky 4 is a B+? It might be an A if I were to watch it now. Yeah, it's the most patriotic of all time.
I know it's a very patriotic movie. I just had a problem with the way they unceremoniously offed Apollo very early in that movie.
It starts the whole entire story. The movie took a risk. It took off an iconic character.
Yeah.
Instead of Robo as literally a killer.
Yeah.
And without Rocky 4, we don't get Creed 2.
Yeah, that is true. I'll give you that. I did think also the thing that also knocked it down for me at the end was the ridiculousness of Rocky giving the speech to the Russian Politburo and then basically claiming that Rocky is the reason communism ended the Soviet Union.
That is the reason that the Soviet Union ended. That's the accurate answer. I think that you just have to embrace the cheesiness of it. Like again, a movie can be super over the top, make absolutely no sense. But if it's super confident in itself, and if it like Guns Akimbo, I don't know if you've seen that movie with Daniel Radcliffe, but the movie is nuts, and the story makes no sense in some of it. But it's super confident in itself. I loved it from the get go of what the director was doing and how confident they were. So that's why Guns Akimbo got a fairly good grade. Like I think of movies like that, and I really like it.
Yeah, I do get that point. Like I personally enjoyed Rocky 3 more because I love Mr. T, and I did like the story arc there of Rocky coming on the top, losing, and having to get rebuilt by Apollo and a different type of fighter. I thought that was a fun arc. Yeah,
no, again, I would agree that Rocky 3, I don't think I graded as high as the others, but it might be the most true to self sequel story of the champion getting complacent and having to rediscover that hunger. So I remember, probably Rocky 3 would get higher now from what it meant as a franchise because it actually took a step in developing the Rocky character.
Yeah, and also a very snappy 90-something minutes. That also helps to pace that movie.
Oh, yeah. I that's one thing getting older is the longer movies you have to plan for those now because you can't just sit down and watch 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Or 3 hours you're watching Avengers Endgame.
Or 3 hours, yeah.
All right, let's get to the cream of the crop here. Let's get to the A range. What's the separator here from the B's to the A's?
A is a movie like that I think maybe should have won an award. Like those are the A's. I give very, very few A pluses. There are very few A pluses on my list. But the A is the movie that I think should have won an award or get more recognition. Or I'll be honest with you, a lot of my guilty pleasures are in the A category just because it's one of those things where you could explain to me a million different ways why the movie doesn't make sense, and I may agree with them, but I just don't care. It's going to be an A for me. Because the thing is, nobody is perfectly objective when they look at a movie. Everyone has their little preferences and stuff like that. So with me, I just embrace it with my like favorite over the top movies that make no sense. They get A too.
Yeah, let's start with the A. One of my A minus movies that stuck on me, Planet of the Apes. I agree with this rating. I'm very high on Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes is one of the most cool that I should say. I should ask you, which Planet of the Apes are you looking at? Because
the original.
Is it the original? The original was awesome. Because also, I was going to say is that the newest trilogy that came out is one of the most underrated trilogies of recent decade or whatever. Like all three of those are really good movies. But anyways, the original, I love the original because the line and the reaction to "Get your paws off me, you dirty, filthy ape!" Like I remember that scene so vividly. Like Charlton Heston's fantastic. The costuming is absolutely ridiculous and really, really cool. Yeah, I love the first Planet of the Apes. For me, it's one of the most iconic original science fiction.
Yeah, I actually have a very interesting story about how I actually first experienced Planet of the Apes. If you're so inclined.
Yeah, please do tell.
Yeah, so this is back when I was in high school. I think I remember this is strange because my high school just had an expansion built on, and then one of my classes was in the new wing. I forget exactly what it was about. Something about cheese American culture and fame. One of the things we did in this class was watch Planet of the Apes. So I basically watched it over 5 separate days. They show us bits parts of the movie, and I remember I sort of got myself built up every day to get more of this movie. And once you get to the end, you see the Statue of Liberty in the sand, and he's realizing that the world has destroyed itself in a nuclear war. I was like, wow, this is an amazing movie.
It's so good. I also think I'm a sucker for sad or depressing or profound endings. I don't necessarily love a happy ending by any means. And Planet of the Apes fits that to a T because when that first drops, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's definitely a big twist at the end. Let's go to the A's now. And the ones I pulled here, Star Wars Episode 4 and Episode 5 both got the A rating from John Stanko.
Yeah, if I were to redo that, Episode 5 would get an A+, because that's my favorite. So I would elevate that above the rest. But, I mean, I love Star Wars. I love everything about Star Wars. But I don't love everything about Star Wars.
No, you don't. We discussed this last year.
We don't talk about that. But, I've been a Star Wars fan for a very long time. I grew up a Star Wars person, not a Star Trek person. So, yeah, I mean, these are two of the original trilogies, so they have to get it.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I did point out, I also went through the sheet. I did see you did have a couple of Star Trek movies in your sheet. I saw Star Trek Motion Picture and Star Trek 2 on your list.
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, I really, really liked. I don't know if I really liked it, but I remember enjoying it. And then the Star Trek, is it Into Darkness? What's the second one with Benedict Cumberbatch where he's Khan?
Yep.
People didn't like that one, but I loved it. I thought it was by far the best one of the three.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I'm
definitely was
already there.
Because I think honestly, somebody who's familiar with the Trek a little bit more, I will say I think that was one of the things where the movie itself was very good, but it was not good for it's not true to the Trek franchise. Sort of I think is their equivalent of Last Jedi, basically is the way I would put it.
Well, listen, I like this one the most. I don't care the vibe of it, whatever. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, it was really, really good. And we'll go to the A+ range. So you said the A+, the cream of the crop. What makes the A+? What's the complete separator?
A+ is I walked out and I can't stop thinking about it days, weeks, years later. Those are movies. These are movies that, honestly, I would say most of these A+, if not all of them, had some major revelation about how I looked at movies. They taught me something about movie making or about movie watching that I didn't even think about before. Those So these are the A plus. Like they shaped me in terms of my movie viewing and how I look at movies.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the one I pulled out, obviously, the original Rocky got an A plus from you.
I'm one of, if not the best sports story of all time. Like, and it's also, I love it. It was a self-made project with Stallone betting on himself and all that. But maybe if I were to regrade it now, maybe it wouldn't be as high. I don't think some parts have aged as well. But when I first saw this movie and the music sound the first time, and I learned and I knew the story behind the movie, it was definitely an A plus for me.
Yeah, and I actually saw the Broadway version is when it was on Broadway a few years back.
Well, I've never saw the Broadway version. How long was it on Broadway? I don't even know.
It was on there for about like a year, and then like it didn't. And then I think they ended up like closing it on Broadway. I think they didn't get as many sales as they wanted to, but like it was definitely a fun experience, like seeing it on Broadway. Because I remember like we had like decent seats for it when I went, and like one of the coolest things they did at the end of the thing was for the fight. They brought a whole like ring basically out into the audience. They pulled the first like 10 rows in the middle of the orchestra section onto the stage, on the bleachers to be the crowd for the fight. And my seats were off to the right of that area, so I was like right near Apollo Creed's corner in the play.
That is pretty cool. I didn't know you could do that, frankly. That's really cool. It must have been a unique theater experience. Like also the stage setup must have been props to the crew of that production, because that sounds like a handful to set up.
It was a handful of setup. I just don't think it. I think it came out at a bad time. I don't think why it lasted. It was pretty good from what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think the age of Rocky being an all-time classic movie, I think that is unfortunately waning away with the generations. I guarantee you that I ask college kids now about the movie Rocky, many of them would not know, and they would just be like, "Wait, is that the one Creed? Are you talking about that one?" And then I would just shake my head.
Yeah, that's true. And I will say, like, my A plus is I do think it like takes a lot to get up there too, because like that has to be a very special grade in movie. And I will say, I've been working through the list that you and I were worked on the last time you were on the one of the early times this summer you were on the podcast. I've been going through the movies here. Of the movies I've seen to date, I would say I would put Knives Out in my A plus category.
In your A plus, wow. Okay,
I love that movie.
I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. It's in your A plus category, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I mean, it was spectacular.
Yeah, because the thing I liked about it is like I've seen the murder mystery movie before. I mean, I've seen the Murder on the Orient Express and stuff like that. I like that what they did is like they did it, they put it in a modern setting, and they twisted it up quite a bit to burst off your expectations. And I thought the way they did that, where they gave you like they supposedly solved the mystery in the middle of the movie, then they solve it again and give you a different ending and then twist everything around on you again. Really well done.
Yeah, I mean, the movie was absolutely excellent, and I loved the pace at which it was cut and directed. Like, I think the movie, it never dragged. It was always like, it was like, you hear the tick, 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 all these quick cuts to kind of keep you engaged. So I love the movie. Daniel Craig was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, at this point on your list, I'm up to The Lighthouse. I just finished that, and I was not as big a fan.
Lighthouse, for me, that movie rocked. It absolutely rocked. That movie blew me away in terms of like what I was like expecting to get, and the black and white, the absolute despair in every single shot. It's the worst roommate story of all time. Like, I think I gave that movie a B plus, and honestly, maybe going back, I'd rate it a little bit higher because the performances are unbelievable. The shot making is incredible. And like the random twists of the story, like they don't make sense, but they're not meant to, because the two main characters are going insane themselves. So you don't know what's real and what's not. Like, I love that.
Yeah, I think that's you. I think also for me, it hurt me because I watched it right after 1917, and I was like, okay, like I was such a high in 1917. I'm like, okay, this did not like grab me like 1917 did. I think that might also have impacted my rating a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I can say so, but I think I would